Okay, so the two poems we are looking at today fall into the category of medieval times. Which one? Which was how long ago? Almost 1,000 years ago, right? Yes, that's right. But Professor, are you sure these are poems? I mean, I thought the poems were shorter. These were more like long stories. I mean, one of them was all about love, but the other one, the whatever it called, the other one, it's all about fighting and battles. I mean, can both of them be considered to be poems? Well, think back to the very beginning of this course. Uh-huh. Remember how we define poetry in the very broadest sense. We said it's written to evoke, to make you, the audience, have some kind of the emotional experience through the use of imagery and some kind of a predictable rhythm. And usually, but not always, there's more than one meaning implied with the word that I use. Let's start with the chanson poetry first. That's the chanson. Chanson poems become popular in Europe, particularly in France, and the term is actually short for a longer French phrase that translates to songs of the year. Now, they were called the songs of these because, strangely enough, they were written to describe the heroic deeds or actions of warriors, the knights during conflict. We don't know a lot about the answers, it still contests some part, but we're pretty sure about who the chanson poems were written for. That is, they were written for the knights and the lords, the nobility that they served. The poems were sung performed by a minstrel, a singer who traveled from castle to castle, singing to its local lord and its knights. Well, does someone summarize the main features of the chanson poem you read? Well, there's a hero and a knight who goes to battle, and he is inspired for his courage, bravery, and royalty. Royalty to royalty serves his country and his fellow warriors in the field. He is a he's a skilled fighter willing to face the most extreme dangers, sacrificial, willing sacrificial, willing that sacrifice anything and everything to protect his king and country. Okay, now given that the intended audience for these poems were knights and lords, what can we say about the purpose of chanson poetry? What kinds of feeling were it meant to provoke? I guess they must have been really appealing to those knights and lords who were listening to them. Hearing the song probably made them feel more patriotic patriotic, made them feel like a good noble things to serve their countries, in whatever way they could. Good, we've got a pretty good picture of what the chanson hero was like. Now let's compare that to the hero in the other poem. The other poem is an example of what's called romance poetry, and the hero in the romance poem was also a knight. But what made the knight in romance different from that kind in that knight in chanson poetry? Well, first, the purpose of the hero's action was different. The hero in romance poetry is independent, purely solitary in a way, not like chanson poet who was always surrounded by his fighting companions. He doesn't engage in conflict to protect his laws or country. He does it for the sake of adventure and to improve himself, to show his worship of respect and love for his lady. He's very concise of the particular rules of social behavior that he has to live up to somehow. And all of these actions are for the purpose of providing that he is an upright, moral, well-mannered, well-behaved individual. You may have noticed that in Chanson's poetry there isn't much about the hero's feelings. The focus is on the action in the deeds, but the Romance poetry describes a lot of the inner feelings and motivations, psychology, you could say, of a knight trying to improve himself to better himself, so that his worth is a love of a woman. What it explains this difference? Well, digging into the historical context tells us a lot. Romance poetry emerged a few generations after chanson, and its roots were in geographical regions of France that were calmer, where conflict wasn't central to people's lives. More peaceful times meant there was more time for education, travel, more time for reflection. Another name for Romance poetry that's often synonymous with it is troubadour poetry. And troubadours were the authors of the new Romance poems, and we know a lot more about the troubadours than we do about chanson authors because they often had small biographical sketches added to their poems that gave pretty specific information about their social status, geographical location, and small outlines of their career. career. This information wasn't particularly reliable because they were sometimes based on fictitious stories, great adventures scraped together from parts of the different poems. But there is enough to squeeze or infer. Ah. Hmm. Their social class, the political climate, have settled down enough so that the troubadour has the luxury of being able to spend most, if not all, troubadours were able to make a living being full-time poets, which should tell you at the time creating, crafting, or composing their love song for their audience. And yes, these poems were also songs. Maybe many troubadours were able to make a living being full-time poets, which were... はい、